The firestorm over a fist bump, controversy over a greeting that kicked off a meeting between President Biden and Saudi Crown Prince Mohammed bin Salman. The president hoping to make a deal that would help lower gas prices, but saying he also brought up the murder of journalist Jamal Khashoggi, whose killing U.S. intelligence believes was approved by the Crown Prince. The president facing more questions over his visit to a country he once swore to make a pariah. COVID cases on the rise again. 85% of Americans are now living in an area where transmission is medium or high. And the White House just extended the nation's public health emergency for another 3 months. The treatment that could be crucial in keeping the numbers down. An autopsy report revealing new details about Jayland Walker, shot and killed by police in Ohio. 46 gunshot wounds or bullet grazes found on his body, and a toxicology report finding no drugs or alcohol in his system. The growing outrage tonight as his death is ruled a homicide. And addressing food deserts, one shipping container at a time. Our Ginger Z has an up-close look at a possible innovative solution to food scarcity.
Hey there, I'm Ginger Z, and it's not too late. Please come inside because I'm in this upcycled shipping container. It's 40 feet long, and they're growing more than 400 pounds of mushrooms a week.
He can pull a monster truck and lift a car off the ground. But one of this strongman's biggest challenges had nothing to do with his physical prowess. The first professional strongman to come out as gay talks about his journey to self-acceptance. Phoebe Robinson going from a dope queen to a TV star with her new show, Everything's Trash. We talked with Robinson about how she tried to create a 30-something character anyone can identify with.
She's a flawed person like all of us, so I think that anyone can really relate to her. Even if you don't agree with all the choices that she makes, you could go, yeah, I remember when I, did that thing.
Good evening. I'm Phil Lipoff in for Lindsay Davis tonight. Thanks so much for streaming with us. We begin with President Biden's high-stakes trip to the Middle East and that very difficult meeting in Saudi Arabia with the Crown Prince. The president trying to walk an incredibly challenging diplomatic line, hoping to get gas prices down here at home after promising as a presidential candidate to treat the kingdom as a pariah state for the murder of Washington Post journalist Jamal Khashoggi. The fist bump with the Crown Prince, now seen around the world, has ignited a controversy tonight. Prominent Democrats, along with Republicans, blasting Biden for the encounter. Biden did say he raised the murder of Khashoggi in that meeting at the top of it. At the briefing just after, President Biden touting all they accomplished on peace in the region, shared technology, energy security. Senior White House correspondent Mary Bruce traveling with the president tonight in Jeddah.
It's the image the Saudis were hoping for, but back in the U.S., it's drawing outrage. President Biden fist-bumping Saudi Crown Prince Mohammed bin Salman, the man the U.S. concluded ordered the murder of journalist Jamal Khashoggi. As a candidate, Biden vowed to make Saudi Arabia pay the price and turn them into a global pariah. Today, the Saudis eager to release this picture of a warm greeting. The Crown Prince then hosting Biden and regional leaders.
Thank you guys. President Biden. Saudi Arabia, thank you guys.
Afterwards, Biden telling reporters he did bring up Khashoggi at the very top of the meeting.
I was straightforward and direct in discussing it. I made my view crystal clear. I said very straightforwardly, for an American president to be silent on an issue of human rights, is this inconsistent with who we are and who I am?
Biden then asked how the Crown Prince responded.
He basically said that he was not personally responsible for it. I indicated I thought he was.
Khashoggi's employer, The Washington Post, calling that fist bump shameful, saying it gave the Crown Prince the redemption he has been desperately seeking.
You're coming under a lot of fire for your fist bump with the Crown Prince. Why?
But Biden's tone grew serious when he was asked about Khashoggi's fiancée, who today tweeted that the blood of MBS's next victim is on your hands.
I'm sorry she feels that way. I was straightforward back then. I was straightforward today.
Biden argued the trip was worth it, saying the Saudis will help lower gas prices in the U.S.
And I'm doing all I can to increase the supply for the United States of America, which I expect to happen.
He says Americans will start to feel that impact at the pump in the coming weeks. And he cited security gains in the region. Saudi Arabia today announcing it's opening its airspace to Israeli flights, an easing of relations.
That is a big deal.
And Mary Bruce joins me now from Jeddah. Mary, President clearly making the calculation here that the gains of this meeting, including bringing down gas prices so many Americans are looking for, are worth opening himself up to this sort of criticism.
And Phil, the president knew that he was going to face this condemnation, but this was a risk he was willing to take. For the president, this was worth it, in part to try and bring Americans some relief. But even if the Saudis do up the flow of oil, it's not clear how much that could actually bring down gas prices back home. What is clear tonight, this visit, those images, it is exactly what the Saudis wanted. Phil.
And Mary, you also spoke with the former Saudi ambassador to the U.S. who was actually in that room today during the high-stakes meeting. What did he have to say?
Well, you know, I pressed him on how he responded when the president was explaining to him his concerns about human rights violations when the president brought up the murder of Jamal Khashoggi. Take a listen to how he explained the Crown Prince's response.
Crown Prince explained to him that this was a terrible mistake that was committed, and it was a terrible crime that Saudi Arabia is paying the price for, and that we were very pained as a country by what happened, and that we investigated the crime and we held those responsible to account, and they are paying the price for the crime they committed as we speak.
He feels that these accusations that the U.S., which of course concluded that the Crown Prince was behind this brutal murder, he says that's totally baseless. You heard him saying that they have been trying to hold to account those who did commit the killing. But when I asked him if he feels that the Biden administration has actually punished the Saudi kingdom, he said that's not the word he would use, but that he feels that the kingdom is being punished simply by a global perception about its leader. Phil.
Mary Bruce for us in Jeddah, Saudi Arabia tonight. Thank you.
Thank you.
Back here in the U.S. to the investigation into the January 6th attack on the Capitol. Sources tell ABC News that a Washington, D.C. police officer spoke to the January 6th committee today and described a heated exchange he says he witnessed between former President Trump and Secret Service agents inside his vehicle. This as the Secret Service is accused of deleting text messages from January 5th and 6th after investigators requested that they all be kept. ABC congressional correspondent Rachel Scott has more.
Tonight, sources tell ABC News the January 6th committee has heard new testimony from a D.C. police officer describing a heated exchange between former President Donald Trump and his Secret Service agents when they refused to take him to the Capitol after his rally. It comes after White House aide Cassidy Hutchinson testified she was told the president lunged at the agents.
The president said something to the effect of, "I'm the effing president. Take me up to the Capitol now." To which Bobby responded, "Sir, we have to go back to the West Wing." The president reached up towards the front of the vehicle to grab at the steering wheel. Mr. Engel grabbed his arm, said, "Sir, you need to take your hand off the steering wheel."
Hutchinson says she was told the president, then grabbed at the agent. Today, sources tell ABC News a D.C. police officer whose vehicle was part of the presidential motorcade says they witnessed a heated exchange. After Hutchinson's testimony, sources close to the Secret Service say the president never put his hands on the agents or grabbed at the steering wheel, but they concede he was angry. Tonight, the Secret Service coming under fire itself after word the agency deleted text messages from January 5th and 6th. Even though they had been asked to hand them over to the Inspector General of the Department of Homeland Security.
We are obviously very concerned that texts from January 5 and January 6 have gone missing. If those texts are gone, we are determined to find them.
The Secret Service claims these messages were erased as part of a device replacement program, adding any insinuation that the Secret Service maliciously deleted text messages following a request is false.
Strong response from the Secret Service tonight. Rachel joins me now from Capitol Hill. Rachel, there's also news tonight that the Army veteran just sentenced to more than 3 years in prison for his role in the January 6th riot. What can you tell us about that?
Yes, Phil, this is James Malt. He was fired from his union job. He was somehow able to re-enlist with the military, but on January 6th, he was seen pepper spraying officers. Somehow he did not disclose that information to the Army. Like I said, he was able to re-enlist, but tonight, a judge is sentencing him to more than 3 years behind bars, insisting that he is not a patriot, but a criminal, Phil.
Rachel Scott reporting from Washington tonight. Thank you. And in Akron, Ohio today, the preliminary autopsy report on Jayland Walker, who was killed by police last month, found he was shot dozens of times. 46 bullets were recovered from his body. ABC's Mola Lenge.
Tonight, an Ohio medical examiner revealing Jayland Walker suffered 46 gunshot wounds or graze injuries after Akron police opened fire while chasing him.
We are not able to say which bullet killed him. He had several very devastating injuries.
5 of those 46 wounds found on Walker's back.
I can't indicate whether or not that was during a time of running away.
The Summit County medical examiner saying a toxicology report came back negative for alcohol or drugs in Walker's system. The 25-year-old was killed in June after a traffic stop turned into a police chase. Body camera video capturing the nearly 6-mile pursuit when authorities say Walker fired a weapon.
21 shots fired. That vehicle just had a shot come out of its door.
Authorities say he later ran from the vehicle, police attempting to tase him before Walker eventually stops and turns towards them, prompting 8 officers to shoot dozens of times. In a statement tonight, Walker's family says they are devastated by the findings and still await a public apology from the police department.
And Mola joins me now. Mola, as we just heard in your report, police say they heard gunshots. Walker's family obviously disputing that. Did today's report shed any light?
Yeah, Phil, well, a lot of people were hoping the report would shed some light. Unfortunately, not so much. According to the medical examiner's office, Walker's hands were not tested for gunshot residue. That's because those tests, that practice of testing evidence for gunshot residue, has been phased out, not only by that medical examiner's office there in Akron, but as well as the FBI.
All right, Mola Lenge, thank you. And we are learning more tonight about what caused the death of former President Trump's first wife, Ivana Trump. According to New York's medical examiner, the 73-year-old died of blunt impact injuries to her torso, sustained as the result of a fall in her Manhattan apartment. Officials say her death was an accident and is not considered suspicious. We shift now to our nation's ongoing battle with COVID. The latest data showing 85% of Americans are now living in an area where transmission is either medium or high. But what about the timeline for widening the eligibility for a second booster to include all adults? ABC's Matt Gutman in Los Angeles for us tonight.
Tonight, with that highly infectious BA.5 subvariant spreading fast, the number of COVID-positive Americans in the hospital is once again climbing to its highest level since early March. But in L.A. County, doctors at Providence Cedars-Sinai say, unlike past surges, they're seeing fewer patients in respiratory failure.
We're seeing a lot more patients that have chronic illness and the elderly population. Seeing much less of people in their 30s, 40s, and 50s.
Still, experts say the numbers are steadily climbing.
It sort of feels like the public is deaf to the reality of this news. This BA.5 variant is hyper contagious, and right behind it, new variants are coming.
85% of Americans are now living in an elevated COVID risk area. More than half the population now in those orange high-risk counties where the CDC says you should be masking indoors. In those yellow medium-risk areas, they say consider masking based on your individual risk.
Masking where appropriate, vaccinating people who aren't vaccinating, and boosting people who are ready and eligible for their boost. We can do that, but we're not doing it to the extent that we should be doing it.
And more than half of eligible Americans still haven't gotten their first booster. But a new CDC analysis shows protection against initial Omicron variants increased with each booster shot, suggesting the current vaccine may still protect against serious illness from BA.5.
Very, very clear in my mind that your risk of ending up in the ICU is dramatically higher if you have not gotten a booster, if you've not gotten that third shot.
Matt Gutman joins us now. Matt, there are these new vaccines coming out in the fall that would help tackle BA.5, but what should Americans do in the meantime?
Dr. Jha and the doctors here say that if you are over 50, Phil, and you have not had a COVID shot in 2022, get one and get one now. Dr. Jha saying that it could save your life. Now, he concedes that it might not prevent you from contracting BA.5, but he says it drastically reduces the chances of hospitalization, of being put in the ICU, and of course of dying. Phil.
All right, Matt Gutman, thank you. To Ukraine now and the relentless Russian attacks on civilians in the south and the ongoing search for the missing. Tom Sufi Burridge is in Ukraine for us.
Tonight, Russia ramping up its ruthless attacks on civilians. The eastern city of Dnipro, the latest target. Videos circulating online showing locals watching as missiles rain down. Ukrainian officials confirming at least 3 people killed in the attack. A US official saying Russian strikes killing up to 150 innocent people in just the past 2 weeks. And new details tonight on Russia's deadly attack on the city of Vinnytsia in central Ukraine. A US official saying the missiles were fired from a submarine, adding there was no sign of a military target in the area. Among those killed, 4-year-old Lisa, seen in this video, thought to be taken just before the attack. This, her stroller at the scene. Her mother tonight in intensive care. Her family telling us she's unaware her daughter is dead. We met Lisa's grandmother at the hospital. I hate all Russians, she says. They took the most precious thing in my life, an innocent 4-year-old child.
Tom Sufi Burridge, thanks for that report from Ukraine tonight. The heart-stopping video, 5 children rescued from a burning home, how a man risked his life to get all of them out to safety. Actress Phoebe Robinson talks about her new TV show and her role behind the scenes, how she's paying homage in this project to the previous job that made her famous. But coming up, many neighborhoods across our country don't have easy access to fresh food, why a company believes shipping containers could be the answer. Ginger Z brings us this week's It's Not Too Late.
With so much at stake, so much on the line, more Americans turn here than any place else. ABC News World News Tonight with David Muir, America's #1 most watched newscast, now streaming on ABC News Live.
This is ABC News Live.
The crush of families here in Poland.
At refugee centers.
In Putin's Russia.
On the ground in Ukraine.
Close to the front line.
Here at the White House.
Destructive Cat 4 storm.
Here
along I-5. Boston is in the bullseye.
Let's go. We made it.
ABC News Live, America's #1 streaming news. Anytime, anywhere. Streaming 24/7, straight to you for free.
Thank you for making ABC News Live America's #1 streaming news.
Admit it, these days, what you need to know
seems to change just about every day.
What is it that you really want to know, need to know?
To help you not just get through your day,
but to make the most of it. Feel smarter.
Feel better.
Feel happier.
Well, how about a 3rd hour of Good Morning America?
GMA 3, what you need to know. Now streaming on ABC News Live.
It's all about you.
The hottest views in daytime are happening right here.
We talk about things on this show that people don't talk about.
That I can't wait to see. Honest takes from strong women.
We need all hands on deck, and we need it right now. This is the time to speak out.
Unafraid to get real.
We stick by our points of view.
We're all seeing it differently, and that's the beauty of The View.
And that's why the most watched #1 daytime talk show is The View. Now streaming on ABC News Live.
America is being poisoned with fentanyl, and we don't even know it.
Just heard my wife screaming. She told me they had just died.
50 to 100 times more potent than morphine.
Keep breathing, come on. It's poison, it's pure poison.
A few grains of salt worth of fentanyl will kill you.
Just my agency has seized enough to kill the entire country.
ABC News Live presents Poisoned, America's Fentanyl Crisis, the powerful series, streaming free on ABC News Live. Take America's #1 news with you, anywhere you go, anytime, free. Download the ABC News app now. Breaking news, exclusives, 24/7, there for you with one touch. The ABC News app. Download it now. America's #1 news, ABC News. Most watched, most trusted, and streaming live to you, anytime, anywhere, and free. This is ABC News Live, America's #1 streaming news, free to you 24/7. Watch America's #1 news whenever you want it, wherever you are, anytime. ABC News Live, streaming live and free on all platforms.
Welcome back. The Buffalo supermarket where 10 black people were shot and killed reopened to the public today. The space has been refurbished after being shut down in May following that vicious attack. There is now a permanent memorial outside for the victims, as you see. Top Supermarket says 75% of employees who were there on the day of the shooting have returned. The store has served not only as a social hub for that community, but also a place to get fresh food in an area that was considered a food desert. Speaking of which, innovative solutions are out there to help address food deserts, too often found in inner cities like the area around that Top Supermarket. Chief Meteorologist Ginger Z shows us in this week's It's Not Too Late.
Hey there, I'm Ginger Z, and it's not too late. Please come inside because I'm in this upcycled shipping container. It's 40 feet long, and they're growing more than 400 pounds of mushrooms a week. And that's just in this one. This could just be the future of agriculture. Even in some of our nation's busiest cities, there are serious food deserts. These are places where people live a half-mile or more with no access to fresh food at a supermarket. But here in the Denver suburb of Sedalia, Colorado, Farmbox Foods believes they've got a solution. Inside this 40-foot-long, upcycled shipping container, you're going to find a vertical hydroponic farm. And it creates as much as 2 football fields worth of traditional agriculture.
So we're currently in what I call our modern farming spaceship.
Okay.
This is an insulated container that has been repurposed, and then we have engineered a product that grows right around 2.5 acres to 3 acres of farmland in this container. So we can be standing in this container here today and have a truck show up tomorrow, and we can put it on a flatbed truck and ship it to Chicago, and 48 hours later, plug it in, and it's growing. And we don't use pesticides, we use nutrients, and I think the biggest thing that we have going for us is we use 3 to 5 gallons of water a day. That's it.
Farming is not easy on the environment. In the United States, more than 40% of our fresh water is used to irrigate crops. And agriculture alone makes up at least 11% of the greenhouse gas emissions in our nation. Tell me about the energy use.
I use the equivalent of about 2 loads of wash per day. And we find that our plants are growing 3 to 4 times faster than they would in an ordinary environment. So we like to say we're farming without harming. So these are mustard greens right here.
Can I rip one off and taste it?
You certainly can.
Yeah, very good.
Why don't you try the basil?
Okay, sure, if you insist.
It pops. It's amazing.
Yeah, it's a nice basil.
Yeah.
Plenty of greens, tomatoes, even bell peppers sprouting in the vertical tubes. Temperature controlled, they can produce year-round in any location. Here, we found a farm box behind this natural grocer in Lakewood, Colorado, where they now control their supply chain and fill their produce section. So, Mike, this is harvest time.
Yeah. So
we're going to take it directly from this wall into the grocery store?
Correct. Yeah. So this wall right here has been growing for about 7 weeks, almost 50 days now, and it's ready to go. So we'll be harvesting, taking it directly into our store, to the sales floor, ready for our customers.
All right. So tell me what I'm picking here. Can I just take it out?
Yeah. That right there is a Bauer oak leaf lettuce. I mean, freshness being number one. It's much more nutrient dense because it hasn't been sitting on a shelf in a warehouse. It hasn't been shipped across the country.
Follow you out of the container and just like, what, 50 yards to the store?
Yeah, it's about 90, a little less than 90 steps to the display.
Okay. Do your
we've done
customers
things
get
like
it?
that.
Do they understand that this is like actually right behind?
Yeah. We do our best to advertise it. Still a new program, so there's customers that don't know about it yet.
Yeah.
But we do our best to talk about it, let everyone know that it's right on display, 82 steps away from where it's grown.
Look at it. It's right here. Straight, got all of them. And what's your best seller?
The butter lettuce has been the best by far.
So you really just take it right from here and put it on there?
Exactly.
And I mean, that's barely little touching. Like, we're always so worried about washing, triple washing, all this.
Yeah.
Freshest nutrients. Cost can be beneficial.
Yeah, right now it is cheaper than our traditional greens.
One of FarmBox Foods' biggest clients? A hospital system. I have never heard of fresh food at a hospital. Why is this important to you?
We went out and talked to our neighbors about what are some of the most significant barriers that you're facing in health. And what we learned was in almost all of our communities, food insecurity was a significant issue.
In 2020, 1 in 8 Americans did not have access to fresh food, and they were considered food insecure. So Centura Health bought 3 FarmBox containers. But like the basil and spinach inside your boxes actually go onto hospital plates?
So the basil and the spinach, which is outstanding, the flavor like you've never had before. So we're serving this for our patients and for our own associates and community members who come into the hospitals. And then as we grow and develop in the foods, then we're also giving this food to the communities through local food banks, farmers markets, so that people can get access and the food will be available for them.
So you think you'll overproduce for the hospital and be able to share?
That's exactly right.
One of the typical criticisms of vertical farming is the limitation on the variety of food that can be produced. But FarmBox tells us that they're testing carrots, potatoes, and even radishes, providing more options for healthy, fresh produce.
Food is health.
Right.
Nutrition is health.
And this ensures that you've got it year-round.
And that we can introduce people to a whole different way of getting their food, tasting their food, using their food in a cultural, respective way, but also in a way that's affordable and available year-round.
FarmBox Foods is expanding globally, already in Jamaica, Canada, Tahiti, and multiple locations across our nation. And therefore, maybe it won't be too late for affordable access to food.
Ginger, thank you. Still ahead here on Prime, WNBA star Brittany Griner back in a Russian courtroom. What her lawyer is saying about why she had the drugs found inside her luggage. The hunt for murder hornets, technology being used to track and trap these invasive predators. And it's the worst global childhood vaccination decline in a generation. What's behind the backslide? We're going to take a look by the numbers. But first, our tweet of the day. Jamal Khashoggi's fiance posts what she believes the murdered journalist would have tweeted about President Biden's fist bump with Saudi Crown Prince Mohammed bin Salman.
All right, here we go. You ready? Let's do it.
Yes, it's the show America wants and America needs right now.
This is What Would You Do? Let's go. How are you?
How cute.
Yes.
So what will you be watching Saturdays on ABC News Live?
What would you do?
Hey, I guess I just found out.
The What Would You Do Marathon, 12 to 6 Eastern, every Saturday on ABC News Live.
My favorite show.
This is ABC News Live.
The crush of families here in Poland.
At refugee centers
In Putin's Russia.
On the ground in Ukraine.
Close to the front line.
Here at the White House.
Destructive Cat 4 storm.
Here along I-5.
Boston is in the bullseye.
Let's go. We made it.
ABC News Live, America's #1 streaming news. Anytime, anywhere. Streaming 24/7, straight to you for free.
Thank you for making ABC News Live America's #1 streaming news.
America is being poisoned with fentanyl, and we don't even know it.
Just heard my wife screaming. She told me they had just died.
50 to 100 times more potent than morphine.
Keep breathing, come on. It's poison, it's pure poison.
A few grains of salt worth of fentanyl will kill you.
Just my agency has seized enough to kill the entire country.
ABC News Live presents Poisoned, America's Fentanyl Crisis. The powerful series, streaming free on ABC News Live.
These days, with so much going on, it's hard to keep up.
While others are recapping yesterday's headlines,
we're bringing you the right now.
This is the busy border crossing. Steel barricades, another strike.
The right now look at the day ahead, how it affects you and your family.
Record high gas prices.
The threat of cyber warfare.
Is peace possible?
World News Now beginning at 2 a.m. Eastern, followed by America This Morning.
America's #1 early morning news.
Streaming here on ABC News Live.
Take America's #1 news with you anywhere you go, anytime, free. Download the ABC News app now. Breaking news, exclusives, 24/7. There for you with one touch. The ABC News app. Download it now.
As of today, in a big way, we have inaugurated abcnews.com.
A lot has changed in our world since Peter made that announcement. But what hasn't changed is the commitment to groundbreaking reporting and innovation at abcnews.com. And here's to everything ahead.
Welcome back. The United Nations says while the world has been focused on COVID-19 vaccines, basic childhood immunizations have been dropping. It's the worst backslide in global childhood vaccinations in a generation. So here are the details on this concerning trend by the numbers. Just 68% of the world's children received vaccines for 11 key diseases in 2021. That is down from 71% in 2019 and the largest sustained decline in 30 years. And it's worse for some of the most common preventable diseases. 5% fewer children got 3 doses of the diphtheria and tetanus vaccine, which prevents whooping cough and other serious diseases. That's 25 million children who didn't get the shots in 2021 alone. 24.7 million kids missed their first measles dose, and another 14.7 million didn't get their second. It's been 13 years since vaccination rates were that low. And the relatively new HPV vaccine, 5% of its global coverage it lost, leaving 3.5 million girls vulnerable to cervical cancer later on in life. The decline due to many factors, including more children living in conflict zones, increased misinformation, COVID-19 related supply chain disruptions, and resource shortages. Health officials are calling for significant improvements in vaccine distribution and administration to avoid a spike in childhood mortality. We still have a lot to get to here on Prime. A plane making a rough landing on a highway and the pilot being accused of being intoxicated, what investigators say happened just before it touched down. A strong man showing a different kind of strength the moment he says convinced him to come out as gay. But first, a look at our top trending stories on abcnews.com.
So much at stake in our world right now. We wanted to thank you for your trust and for making ABC News America's #1 news.
And thank you for making ABC News Live America's #1 streaming news.
Now streaming on ABC News Live 2020. True crime, cinematic, real-life drama, stunning, the unthinkable. Follow the clues, The Hunt. True crime 2020. Now streaming on ABC News Live.
National parks are incredibly safe places, but crime will happen.
Hey, Mama. My wife had fallen. She's in really critical condition.
At that time, I thought it was just a tragic accident.
There's still a lot of questions we need to ask.
There were small things that didn't totally add up.
This is 2 lives for Harold that have died now. I was shocked. Something's not right.
Admit it. These days, what you need to know
seems to change just about every day.
What is it that you really want to know, need to know?
To help you not just get through your day,
but to make the most of it. Feel smarter.
Feel better.
Feel happier.
Well, how about a 3rd hour of Good Morning America?
GMA 3, what you need to know. Now streaming on ABC News Live.
It's all about you.
I know what happened, and I'm not guilty.
Why the fascination with criminal trials? Figure out what's really out there.
She revealed she had murdered his family.
I know in my heart that he did this.
It's the time of suspicion. The ending's really tough.
You don't know whether truth is going to be difficult to find unless you try to find it.
America's #1 news, ABC News. Most watched, most trusted, and streaming live to you anytime, anywhere, and free. This is ABC News Live, America's #1 streaming news. Free to you 24/7. Watch America's #1 news whenever you want it, wherever you are, anytime. ABC News Live, streaming live and free on all platforms.
In Saudi Arabia, following an economic summit, President Biden pushed back on criticism for meeting with Saudi Crown Prince Mohammed bin Salman and greeting him with a fist bump. The U.S. determined MBS ordered the killing of journalist Jamal Khashoggi. President Biden pledged during his campaign to hold Saudi Arabia accountable. Today, he told reporters he discussed the murder and human rights.
I raised it at the top of the meeting, making it clear what I thought of it at the time and what I think of it now. And it was I was straightforward and direct in discussing it.
The president says he called on Gulf leaders to increase oil production to help ease global prices due to the ongoing pandemic and war in Ukraine.
WNBA star Brittany Griner back in a Russian court, this time appearing for about 90 minutes, though she did not testify. Her lawyer presented evidence, medical permission from an American doctor for the use of cannabis to reduce pain. Griner has pleaded guilty to drug charges. Her trial will resume on July 26th, postponed at the request of the defense to allow more time for Brittany to prepare her testimony.
At one point, Griner holding up a photo of WNBA stars wearing jerseys with her name and number at the league's All-Star game this past weekend.
A major blow to the president's domestic plans.
West Virginia Democratic Senator Joe Manchin has told party leaders he will not support the Biden agenda's tax reform, climate, and energy proposals. Manchin's withdrawal is a barrier to any legislation passing the Senate. A spokesperson for Manchin saying the agenda does little to help families struggling with high gas prices and inflation.
Manchin staff telling Senate Majority Leader Chuck Schumer he'll support a reconciliation measure that only includes a provision to lower prescription drug prices.
5 Indiana children are safe thanks to the heroic actions of a Good Samaritan. The Lafayette Police Department credited 25-year-old Ryan Bostic with saving 4 siblings and a friend, ages 1 to 18, after a fire broke out at a home overnight Monday. Bostic told ABC News he was driving by when he saw the house on fire and pulled over, arriving before first responders. Without his phone to call 911, Bostic took matters into his own hands. He ran into the back of the house and outside, leading 4 of the children out before going back in and fighting through thick smoke and heat to find the remaining 6-year-old and escaping with her out of a window. Police say Bostic was briefly hospitalized for severe smoke inhalation and a cut to his arm. The city of Lafayette honored Bostic, praising his courage, tenacity, and steadfast calmness. A small plane forced to land on a Missouri highway early Friday not only ran out of fuel, but had an intoxicated pilot. The Missouri State Highway Patrol said the plane made an emergency landing on I-70. The aircraft struck a guardrail on its way down. The pilot, the only one on board, suffered minor injuries. The Highway Patrol said the pilot was found to be intoxicated and arrested and ultimately released to a local hospital for his injuries. Fortunately, no vehicles on the highway were hit. Wordle, one of the hottest online word puzzle games, is becoming a board game. Hasbro and the New York Times have announced the development of Wordle, the party game. Just like in the online version, you get 6 chances to guess a 5-letter word, but this time you're competing against other players to guess the mystery word in the fewest number of tries. The player that solves the puzzle in the fewest number of tries will get the fewest number of points, with the lowest score winning the game. Wordle, the party game, is available for pre-order now and will be released in October.
His incredible feats of strength make him one of the world's strongest men, but his definition of strength may not be what you think. Our Gio Benitez met with the first professional strongman to come out as gay.
Ask yourself this question: what does it mean to be strong? Does it mean being able to pull a monster truck, or lifting a car off of the ground, or throwing around gigantic rocks?
They're volleying at this 4.5-foot net.
Those are big rocks.
They're pretty big.
What's the most weight you've ever picked up?
So I've deadlifted 971 pounds.
971 pounds. That's roughly the same as picking up 5 grown adults, or 4 full-sized refrigerators, or an entire grand piano. For Rob Kearney, being strong is often measured in Herculean feats like these. It makes sense. He's one of the strongest people in the world. Now, before I go on, a primer for anyone like me who has no idea what's going on here. This is the world's strongest man competition. It takes place every year. For more than 4 decades, These giants come from all over the world to settle an age-old question: who is the biggest and strongest of them all? And Rob is one of the fiercest competitors.
When you were growing up, watching sports, weightlifting, what was strength to you?
I wasn't a terribly athletic kid growing up. Honestly, it was in the weight room where I really found myself.
Before long, Rob had turned pro, duking it out with the world's mightiest. But beyond the muscles and the mohawk, there existed a part of his life that none of his competitors knew.
I always knew I was different, but I never accepted as to why. It was always just pushed into the back of my mind, and I never wanted to deal with it. It wasn't until college where I actually dated a girl for about a year and a half. And that was really my only relationship throughout my entire life up until that point. But one day I woke up and I kind of had this epiphany, and I was like, I can't do this anymore. Here I am thinking I'm living this heteronormative life and gonna have that white picket fence life with a wife and kids. And I'm finally realizing that's not what I want, and that's not what's gonna make me happy.
And you're doing it in this hyper-masculine sport, right? Where
Yeah.
you don't know if you reveal who you are, what's gonna happen.
Yeah, once I realized it for myself and I could confidently look in the mirror and say, I'm a gay man, and be proud of that, I kind of had this mentality that I realized if people didn't like it about me, I didn't need them to accept it. I was finally accepting myself. And that was opening up these doors that I never knew existed.
Opening new doors? More like kicking them in. Rob soon took the strongman world by storm, even dubbing himself the world's strongest gay, the first openly gay professional strongman in the sport's history. But even Rob's mighty strength was no match for Cupid's arrow.
Not long after I had ended that relationship with the girl, I actually met Joey. I look back and it was honestly like a middle school romance to start.
So what was going through your mind? Like, did you realize that he was a pro strongman at the time? And
like, he was talking about it, I'm like, I don't really know what this is. Like, I didn't even watch World Strongest Man on TV. Like, that's how gay I was. I was like, oh yeah, that sounds cool. Like, you lift weights. And then like, I started talking to him more about it. He was showing me videos, and I'm like, oh, like, you do this kind of stuff. Like, you lift like giant boulders and like deadlift cars. I'm like, one, that's pretty cool. And like, two, like, I want to do that.
Together, Rob and Joey have become arguably the world's strongest couple. They've written a book, and to their surprise, were fully embraced by their strongman community. And today, they're giving me a lesson: how to become a strongman 101.
So this is honestly kind of like a strongman playground.
Yeah.
Playground is a kind way to put it. Still, I wanted to try my hands at the world's strongest man's most notorious event, those famed Atlas stones.
So we have ones that are plenty light enough where first time you could throw them around no problem.
Okay, all right, perfect. Is this my stone?
Yeah.
All right.
And I'll bring mine up as well. I'll go over to the 52.
Just a little bit different. Just a little different there.
From here, you hold on to it, and then you're just gonna look up at the platform, squeeze it into your body, stand up and get it up on the platform.
Okay, so you make it look easy. So
good, foot placent's good. Get your fingers underneath it.
Underneath it.
You'll squeeze it, bring it up into your lap. You're gonna sit down, reach around the stone. Good, and then lift it up onto the platform.
Woo. All right. It wasn't as graceful as yours.
You're ready to do strongman.
Yeah, I'm ready. I'm ready.
Okay, sure, I may not be leaving behind my news career to lift rocks for a living just yet, but for Rob and Joey, all of this is part of a greater goal. Each press, each pull, each lift, an important step in changing the narrative around what it means to be a gay man.
I think all too often, gay men are seen as weak, and they're typically portrayed as, you know, feminine, flamboyant, and that's really it. Gay doesn't have to look a certain way. Here I am as a gay man with a mohawk and these muscles and competing at the highest level of this hyper-masculine sport of strongman. It's been a really great way to be able to show people that sexuality really has no bearing on things you can achieve.
So what does it mean to be strong? Maybe being strong isn't measured in pounds of iron and steel, but rather in being true to yourself and inspiring others to be true to themselves along the way.
I think, honestly, it's about writing your own narrative and realizing that true strength isn't just physical. It comes in so many different ways. I am a strong man and I'm gay and I can do both of these things. So that's really been the most important thing for us, is to be able to show everybody that regardless of these parameters and these boxes that people put you in, you can kick down those walls and do whatever you want.
He certainly can kick down walls and do whatever he wants. I think Gio's being modest, by the way. I think he could hang with them in the gym. Now to the race to track down murder hornets in the Pacific Northwest. Scientists actually have some new tools, including drones, to go after them. But at the same time, they're also asking for the public's help. Here's ABC's Kaylee Hartung.
The hunt is on for murder hornets once again. Washington officials ramping up the search as they emerge from hibernation.
If we wait until say October and into November, we risk new breeding casts being produced and new queens being produced. And that's something we want to definitely avoid.
The state deploying 1,000 traps, training entomologists, testing new suits and equipment, and for the first time ever, planning to use drones to track hornets tagged by scientists in hopes of finding a nest. A research team even traveling to South Korea to learn more about the invasive species.
The biggest question that we need to have answered is how far do new queens fly before they decide to stop and make a new nest? And that is something no one has ever figured out. 4
nests have been destroyed since these Asian giant hornets were first discovered in the U.S. in 2019. A nest the size of a basketball, vacuumed out of this tree north of Seattle in 2020. And nearly 1,500 hornets wiped out when another nest was found nearby in 2021. They're the world's largest hornet species, as big as 2 inches long. That's 5 times the size of a honeybee, their favorite prey. Experts fear they can wipe out entire honeybee colonies, which would devastate crops. Attacks on humans are rare, but possible if threatened. Their venom killing dozens every year in Japan.
If you don't eradicate them and they become established, then we have management issues, to deal with management issues for them for the rest of eternity.
All right, Kaylee Hartung, thank you for that. And we are tracking several headlines around the world right now. The narco of narcos, Mexican drug kingpin Rafael Caro Quintero, has been detained in Mexico. Multiple law enforcement sources tell ABC News. The former leader of the Guadalajara cartel had been wanted for the 1985 kidnapping and murder of a DEA agent whose capture and torture were dramatized in the Netflix show Narcos. It wasn't immediately clear whether the fugitive will be extradited to the United States. 2 heat waves this summer have left nearly 800 people dead in Spain, according to the Ministry of Health there. Record heat has caused wildfires throughout the European continent. Homes have burned down in Portugal, Spain, France, Croatia, as temperatures have hit more than 100 degrees in some parts. A landslide hit the rural school in Colombia, killing 3 children and forcing a dozen more to narrowly escape. Civilians from the surrounding areas, as well as police officers and soldiers, scrambled to rescue the children buried under the mud. When the landslide hit, 22 children, a teacher and a mother were in that school. 17 children and 1 adult managed to get out. Turning now to the surprise revelation from actress Constance Wu, who went public that she actually attempted suicide after receiving backlash for some posts on social media. Eva Pilgrim with more.
Her career was on fire. Constance Wu starring in films like Crazy Rich Asians.
You know, when you said you grew up in your grandma's house, I wasn't expecting this.
And going toe-to-toe with J-Lo in the 2019 crime drama Hustlers.
I don't want to hurt anybody.
Me either. But for the last several years, the 40-year-old has been MIA online, overnight returning to Twitter with a personal message, saying the backlash she received for tweets she posted several years ago affected her so much that she attempted suicide, writing, "I was afraid of coming back on social media because I almost lost my life from it. 3 years ago, when I made careless tweets about the renewal of my TV show, it ignited outrage and internet shaming that got pretty severe." In 2019, Wu made controversial tweets when responding to the renewal of her ABC series, Fresh Off the Boat, one of the few shows on TV starring a primarily Asian cast in the lead roles.
Me and Evan are in the play.
You are?
Why? You're not going to become actors. You think they're going to put 2 Chinese boys on TV?
The 40-year-old tweeting, "So upset right now that I'm literally crying." When a fan wrote, "Congrats on your renewal, great news," Wu responded, "No, it's not." Wu's comments sparking concern. The actress later clarifying that she was disappointed because the renewal meant she'd have to turn down a passion project. Wu eventually deleting her account altogether.
Social media is like peer interaction on steroids. And so any potentially negative experience can really be intensified.
Wu writing in her latest tweet, "I felt awful about what I'd said, and when a few DMs from a fellow Asian actress told me I'd become a blight on the Asian American community, I started feeling like I didn't even deserve to live anymore."
I would encourage you to think for yourself, the way you encourage your class to think for themselves.
The actress now saying she wants to help people talk about the uncomfortable stuff in order to understand it, reckon with it, and open pathways to healing.
Wu goes on to say that after her break from Hollywood and lots of therapy, she is ready to get back on social media and share her story, hoping that it will help others. And remember, if you are struggling with thoughts of suicide or worried about someone else doing the same, the National Suicide Prevention Lifeline at 1-800-273-8255 is there for you. Next to actress Phoebe Robinson, who is thriving as a comedic creative force of nature. From a dope queen to starring, writing, and executive producing her own show, she recently sat down with our Lindsay Davis to discuss her newest project, Everything's Trash, that is currently streaming on Freeform, which is owned by ABC News' parent company, the Walt Disney Company.
I just listened to your podcast. I'm black and broke too.
Life is hard.
Auntie Phoebe looks like she just came from a sleepover party.
You're doing the best you can. I'm okay representing that.
You are the brightest damn light I know.
Y'all, what's more black and excellent than this?
Inventing peanut butter, ladies from Hidden Figures, most popular music.
How does it be to be at the helm here as the EP of Everything's Trash?
I'm excited. I'm just pinching myself. I'm really happy. It's a lot of fun. I mean, you know, I learned a lot being an executive producer and just sort of rolling up my sleeves and being involved in so many decisions. It's really, really cool. And I kind of like it.
But give us a sense of what the show is about.
The show's about a 30-something podcaster named Phoebe Hill. And, you know, she's kind of like struggling financially, maybe dating the wrong people. And so she's kind of forced to grow up a little bit when her older brother launches his political career.
You caught feelings.
I've been safe.
But there's no condom for your heart.
And so you get to see her make mistakes, be really funny, wear lots of cute clothes, and a lot of cute wigs. So it's a good time.
And when we're talking about Phoebe, your character in particular, TV Phoebe, we talk about how she's in this pivotal place in adulthood. Give us a sense of what that place is and who you hope the viewers will be. Like, who do you think that her character will attract?
Yeah, I think when you're in your 30s and you don't have everything figured out, sometimes people can look at you like, what's wrong with you? And I wanted to sort of kind of point to the fact that not everyone has their life sorted out by 30. Some don't have it sorted out by 40 or what have you. We really want this show to be like, she's a flawed person like all of us. So I think that anyone can really relate to her. Even if you don't agree with all the choices that she makes, you can go, yeah, I remember when I, did that thing, or that's something that like my friend went through. And I really just wanted to have that be a part of the show and also show that her brother, Jayden, who on paper has everything together, he's married, has a good job, is a great father.
For the past 8 years, I've been a nonprofit lawyer, and that's led me here.
I'm not gonna lie, I didn't know much about you, but you seem cool.
He's also has flaws and he's messy and like he needs her in a way that she sometimes also needs him, and they complete each other in a way and lift each other up.
Now, the book came out in 2018. At some point in the book, you were kind of talking about the premise of everybody thought when Obama was elected, everything was going to be great. And then it was like, everything was not so great ultimately. Would you say now, when we're talking about 5 years later, have things gotten trashier? Are things better? Stay the same?
I feel like we're always under some sort of duress, just as human beings. And so I feel like The trash is probably a little bit worse, but mostly the same. And I think, you know, what I'm inspired by is the way that I see people are stepping up and being there for their communities, even when it seems like everything is just so heavy and we're making no progress. So I think I see a lot of uplifting stuff happening as well, in addition to a lot of the sort of like tricky, tough times we're going through.
And you're so young, you've already done so much, from the podcasts of Two Dope Queens and the stand-up specials, you've done movies and TV. By the way, you also are a New York Times best-selling author. So now, taking this role as the executive producer, tell me about how you feel your comedic muscle has really evolved over time.
Yeah, I think really with time, I've gained more confidence, and I really believe in my gut, and I follow the instinct. I'm also like okay with being wrong, because I think, you know, before you're like, if I admit that I'm wrong, then someone's going to realize I made a mistake and I'm weak. And now it's like people respect you if you go, you know what? That wasn't the best call.
Tell us about Tiny Reparations, what you're doing now, and also the backstory on that name.
Yeah, I mean, so my production company, Tiny Reparations, has been around since 2019, and my imprint, Tiny Reparations Books, has been around for almost a year now. And, you know, the joke sort of like started, the title, it was a joke, like Tiny Reparations. Like I remember when Jessica and I were doing Two Dope Queens, and we would always say like, oh, we're too ignorant to get, you know, like reparations financially, but we can get like those small moments where things go our way. And I just thought like, you know, I think everything I've tried to do with my career has always been, yes, so I can have fun and work and everything, but I also want to provide a platform for other people who are brilliant and maybe don't get as many opportunities because of the way they look or their gender or what have you. And so I really want this to be a place where I can give back and support other voices and not just my own.
Having gone through so many different versions of, you know, a lot of people just do podcasts or just do TV or just do movies or just do books. Having done so much, what's your favorite?
Ooh, it all depends on the day. I really do. The introvert part of me really loves to just writing books because I could just be by myself, turn on some Shaka Khan and just write some, you know, some jokes. But then I also really fell in love with having a writer's room for this TV show because it's, you know, 11 people from different walks of lives, and we're all trying to make each other laugh, and we're all really smart and brilliant and compassionate. And so it was really cool to sort of collaborate with writers who push you to make you better and make you funnier. And I certainly wouldn't be the writer that I am if I didn't have people like them making me step my game up.
All right, and lastly, what's next for you, Phoebe? What do you want to do now?
Well, my dream is to write a romantic comedy that I can star in. Those are my favorite movies. I think of like When Harry Met Sally, Notting Hill, you know, Brown Sugar, all these movies. So that would be my dream. And then, you know, maybe Michael B. Jordan could play a love interest, you know, no pressure, Michael, but that would be the dream.
He's available.
Yeah, right?
Phoebe, thank you so much for your time. Really appreciate it.
Thank you. It was so great chatting with you.
She's down to casting now, too. Our thanks to Lindsay Davis for that. Before we go tonight, the image of the day. This is how some folks in Boulder, Colorado floated into work. We wonder how they're going to spend their weekends if that's how they get to work. That's our show for this hour. Stay with ABC News Live for more context and analysis of the day's top stories. I'm Phil Lipoff. Thanks for streaming with us.